Great. All right, the Freilich and Hanukkah. So we'll take a look at a Maimer Chazal. One statement from the sages. Hanukkah is a time of Torah Shabbal Peh. This is a time where we give a chizuk for Torah Shabbal Peh, which is really has to do with nighttime. Torah Shabbal Peh is something that should be learned at nighttime. Torah Shabbal Ksav you can see during the daytime. Then the sun goes down. In the time before Edison, people's eyes used to turn inward. That's the time we look inside ourselves. Now we have lights all over the place, so all the time it's time to Torah Shabbal Ksav. But practically, this is the darkest time of the year, and that's why it's no mistake that Hanukkah comes at a time when we turn in. So it's nice to at least take a look at one Maimer Chazal. One of the things we do in the school that I'm involved with now is that we take something called Pitka Mashur. Take a statement. They usually pick out something every week. We go into all the classes and we repeat something 101 times. You know, every class. Just take a nice picture, something that has to do with the Indian, and write out the Pitkam in Hebrew and English, and where the Maramakam is, and then we give a short 3-minute description, and then we repeat it over and over again. Once you said it over 101 times. It's also a statement from the sages. Ein Adama Shona Pirko Mea Pamin L'Shona Pirko Mea Echad Pamin. When someone repeats, somebody learns it 100 times, 101 times. It's no comparison. Even from the 100 to 101, there's a cumulative impact. Keep on pounding away, and it makes a big difference. It makes a lasting impression on somebody. So, the idea is to take a Maimer Chazal, take a statement from the sages, and wake it up inside. Repeat it enough times. 101 is really not enough. I go into all the classes, so I end up doing it 1,000 times, 1,010 times, because I'm doing it 101 times in every class. And even still, I feel like it only begins. But you can stop any kid in the hallway, and they'll know that, and they'll have that Maimer Chazal. At least it'll be etched into their psyche. What exactly it means, is a lifetime exploration. So it may seem like it's a light thing. It's like Pirkei Avos looks like it's something. It's a davar kal. Looks like something like it could have fallen out of a fortune cookie or something like that. Like Aunt Tilly drinking chamomile tea could have thought up some of these nice aphorisms and statements. But Rabbi Yosef Salanta says you take any statement from the sages, it's like a star. If you take a look, it looks like twinkle, twinkle, little star, like this little, this little sequin that's, somebody hung up in the sky. But when you get close to it, you find out it's a burning universe. It's a fiery universe. So we take a statement from the sages that look like it's, what is it? Right? Haragil Bener, Chazal tell us. We'll take one for Hanukkah. Right? Haragil Bener, right? Familiar? Havyan le bonin tamid chachamim. That's what the sages say. Haragel Bener, right? Somebody's accustomed with a candle. Havyan lei banin talmid chachamim will have children who are talmid chachamim. So what does that mean? That if somebody's ragel bener, somebody's accustomed with a candle, that they'll have children talmid chachamim. A few questions pop into the mind right away. The curious mind asks, what do you mean? Everybody who likes candles, everybody who's busy with candles, has children of talmid chachamim? It's not true. It doesn't work out like that. Although you do hear stories, there the Holocaust people who snuck in, their only possession that they were able to get into the camps was one lady took in a suitcase with candles, and she lit candles during the war. And it turns out that her children became Talmid Chachamim. Okay? There's a certain chashivas over there. Rashi says on the Gemara that we're talking about Ner Chanukah v'Ner Shabbos. Ner Shabbos v'Ner Chanukah. So there's something about Ner Chanukah and Ner Shabbos that somehow engenders Havyan le banim tamid chachamim. So what does it mean that haragel bener, that someone who's a rugel with a candle, Havyan le banim tamid chachamim? Rashi says Ner Shabbos v'Ner Chanukah. Let's examine a few different approaches over here. Let's take at least 3 different approaches. Yeah.
And Hanukkah, the husband, so isn't it usually the mother's mitzvah? It's the boys tamid chachamim, or?
So we see that but the husband is meitiv leneros for Shabbos, and the husband is lighting the for Hanukkah. So there could be some combination over there between this is the wife, this is the husband. Have to see how it works exactly. But what's the dynamic? How does it make sense that somebody's a rugel with a candle? And the truth is, Ner Hanukkah and Ner Shabbos are very light things to do. It doesn't, the most, yeah?
Also, what they say about Shabbos candles, that the husband should hear them, burn them.
Right.
So that's what it means, that the husband is, I guess the woman comes in right before Shabbos, she has it ready.
Right. So now, we have a makor to that. We have a source at least that the man is involved with those candles over there. But what's the dynamic? In order to have respect for the statement, we have to understand a little bit how it works. What does it mean? Because sometimes you hear these statements and it sounds like it's an overpromise, promising too much, and the minute it doesn't deliver, you say, what happened over here? So we don't want a cartoon image of what the dynamic of it is. So we're going to take three different approaches. Number one, the Chazal tell us haragel bener. Someone's busy with a candle. Havyan le banin talmidei chachamim. We have children who are talmidei chachamim. So one approach is like this. Let's begin with a story. There was I remember heard years ago. I'm not going to name the source, but I heard the story. I don't think the person who told it appreciated how deep and how beautiful the story is. That there was an American Indian, someone who lived on a reservation someplace out in the woods, out in the sticks, and he had a friend who was I don't know if they use this term anymore, a city slicker. Someone who lived here in the New York metropolitan area, someone in a New York state of mind, New York City state of mind. And they somehow became friends. They had this camaraderie between them, and even that the New Yorker went out into the woods and he came to visit his friend at the reservation, and he spent some time out there in the quiet, walking in the woods, walking quietly between the trees, and he got his picture of what's going on, how life is like on the reservation. And then, of course, to reciprocate, so the New Yorker invited his Indian friend to come to New York for a big visit, his first time to the big city. And there they were touring the big city. He took them up to the tall buildings and down into the subway station. He took them all over the place, east side, west side. I'm not going to sing any songs, all around the town. And the Indian, he gave him the real A1 tour of the entire 5 boroughs, everything. He took them all over the place. Took the Statue of Liberty, you name it. And at the end of the day, it was. Thank you. At the end of the day, it was the sun was setting, and they happened to find themselves in Times Square, and the lights are flashing all over the place. And the subways are rumbling underneath, and the cars are honking, and it's rush hour. I don't have to tell you what it looks like, what it feels like over there. And the Indian suddenly gets this transfixed look on his face, like he's looking around, like what's going on? Like he's looking, his eyes are darting here and there. And his New Yorker friend is thinking already, the poor guy Nebuch, he got a good case of sensory overload. Too much stimulation. Like you give a kid too much sugar, too much candy in one day. He just saw and experienced too much. So I overloaded him because he's starting to space out. His eyes are just darting all over the place. He became ADD or ADHD, and in one afternoon. That's what happens. Living in New York will do it to you. And so the New Yorker's like watching. His eyes are flashing all over the place, darting here and there. And he says, you okay? Maybe you want to sit down. Maybe we'll go into a quiet restaurant. He says, no. The Indian says, I think I hear the sound of a yellow-bellied warbler. Some rare little birdie, And the New Yorker goes, well, what are you talking about? A yellow-bellied warbler. He says, it's ridiculous. And the Indian says, look, he says, oh, look. He says, up on the second ledge, on the third window, over there. He says, tell me if that's not a yellow-bellied warbler. So the New Yorker, says skeptically to himself, he says, the pigeons, we got a lot of pigeons here. He probably thinks that, he saw a pigeon, he thinks, it's a yellow-bellied warbler. And the Indian goes, no, take a look. And the fella, takes a long-distance look, and he goes, Taka? He says, you're right. He says, I remember from my Audubon days, he says, that's no pigeon, that's a yellow-bellied warbler. He says, but how did you hear the sound of this yellow-bellied warbler, this little chirper, that little bird, amidst this giant cacophony, this noisy mixture of sounds over here, this salad of crazy and distracting sounds? How did you hear the sound of that little bird amidst all this confusion and noise? And the Indian says, very simple. Didn't give an explanation right away. He walks over there's a group of people queuing up for a bus, waiting for a bus. The Indian reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out a handful of change, and he bowls it on the ground. He throws it onto the ground, and suddenly you got coins, running on the sidewalk. And everybody who was there, waiting there patiently for the bus, and their heads start darting left and right. They're looking all around, and the Indian walks back to his New Yorker friend and said, how did they hear the chink of the change on the sidewalk amidst all this noise that's going on in this busy, crazy, distracting city over here? And he gave the answer. He says, because these people came into New York, and they came into the big city because they're looking for bargains, or because they're working and they're trying to earn some money. And it's about the ring of the cash register. Everything's about, money over here. So when they hear the sound of, change running on the sidewalk, it catches their attention, he says, and that alerts them. They're tuned into it. And he didn't explain, because he doesn't want to explain. He says, I grew up on the reservation. He says, on the reservation, it's quiet, and there's not too many distractions. And over the course of the many years, and throughout my youth, he says, I tuned into the sounds of the birds. I know the different types of birds. I know the nuances of their seasons and their feelings when they're mating, when they're dying, when they're children. I know everything that's going on. I know their moods. I know everything that's going on with the birds. I know the tempo of their life. I know the ebb and flow of everything that goes on in their lives. I'm tuned into the birds. So to the extent that even if I'm going to come into a distracting and crazy and confusing city, I'll be able to tune in and pick up the sound of a bird, even in the midst of this distracting city. So that's the mashal. That's the story, right? So what's the idea? Let's plug it in now. Let's plug the values in. Haragel bener, that's someone who's accustomed with a candle. Habyan le bonim tamid chachamim. We said before. Rashi says that we're talking about the ner Chanukah, the ner Shabbos. All right. Let's start with ner Shabbos. Right. So Shlomo Melech had already told us, right, that ner lokim nishmas adam. Right. Shlomo Melech tells us what's a candle. Right. The candle is also a mashal for something. It's ner lokim, the candle of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Nishmas adam is the neshama of a person. I once heard Rabbi Tursky said over that many people, in fact most people, have a custom. I'm sure everybody has. The parents have the custom. They just don't light the husband and wife, the mother and the father light for each other, but for every additional child in the house, right? So a new candle comes onto the tray. Yeah. As my kids were growing up, they knew, here we had an even number, then we had an odd number. They know which one. Sometimes they identify, this one is for me. Oh, he's about to fall asleep on the couch. Look, that one's flickering and falling asleep. They have some kind of identification about whose candle is which. So Rabbi Tursky said that a Jewish child growing up in a household, in a Shabbos household where they have this custom, has already now the lesson that's installed in him that there's a little extra light in the world because I'm here in this world. So even though it's something which is done only once a week, but the parents are lighting that extra candle each week as an indicator and installing it into the mind of the child that you're an extra neshama, you're an extra candle that came into this world. That's what you're here for. That's what you're a ner Elokim, nishmas adam. You're a neshama of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that came into this world. And on Shabbos we stop doing everything. Money's not important, and chasing is not important, and all these. Why we take a pause, a giant pause, and we time out? Because what's important is neshama is important, right? And that's really what it's all about. It's about neshama. We're here to take neshama time and family time and to experience our neshama yesera on Shabbos, which brings out song and brings out closeness and chavivas. That's what it's all about. That's what Shabbos is all about. So on Shabbos, so that lesson, one little drip each week, is installed into the mind of a child that grows up inside of a Jewish home. By the way, parenthetically, it says Mitzvahs Chanukah Ner Ishu Beso. We'll get back to now. Mitzvahs Chanukah is Ner Ishu Beso. What does it mean, Ishu Beso? Just like it says, Eila Shmos Bnei Yisrael, Haboy Mitzrayim, Eis Yaakov, Ish Ubeso. Find the same exact language over there. When Klal Yisrael came down to Mitzrayim, they came down as households. They didn't come down en masse, and when they finally left Mitzrayim after 210 years, it wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu holding sway in a giant stadium saying, yes we can, yes we can. Where were people congregated? Sitting around tables in their homes. That's what Hirsch points out in his Haggadah. They came down as families and they left as families. The survival unit of Klal Yisrael is mishpachas, mishpacha. Ish ubeso. It's a household event. It's a household mitzvah. So therefore, on Shabbos, a child gets an indication, a strong indication every week, although it's only for that one day of the week, but it's for the entire duration of a childhood. The person is getting that lesson that's getting pounded in little by little, drip by drip, over the course of the many years, that what's important is neshama, ner Elokim, nishmas adam. And then Shlomo Melech, also still the wisest of all men, had also told us another place. Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or there's another dimension of mitzvah. Now we go into what's Chanukah. What's Chanukah? Is Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or. What's the whole purpose of lighting of the Chanukah candle? right? I once heard many years ago that the Yavanim really appreciated Yiddishkeit. They appreciated the Torah, the Chacham of the Torah. There's only one part they didn't appreciate about the Torah, and that is those things that didn't have any connection to practicality. They appreciated the psychology, they appreciated the wisdom and the Chachma. But when it came to things, you're burning a menorah in the base of Mikdash, and you're not allowed to haneros halalu kodesh heim ve'ein lanu reshus l'ishtamish behem. You have no use of them. What's the point of burning a candle that you have no use of? Right? That's what burning it. You know, when I was a kid, my parents used to turn off the lights in every room, and they used to criticize. You ever heard this one? What do we work for, Con Ed? Remember that one? Anybody remember that line? What do we work for, Con Ed? That was one. You leave a light burning on in a room over here. You come into a room and all the lights are on. You're in the middle of the night. What do we work for, Con Ed? You remember that line? Remember I used to get that line all the time. What do we work for, Con Ed? So what are we turning on lights? We're investing in oil and we're filling up the bowls and we're lighting the candles and we say, Ein lana reshus l'ishtamish behem. We have no use for them. What's the point of that? That's in defiance of the Greek culture, who said, we like everything that makes sense in Yiddishkeit. We like the practicality of family life, maybe even Tarsa Meshpacha, and we like, there's a lot of neat psychology over here, and there's a lot of business seichel, and there's a lot of, you can learn it. Even the Koreans, I read some article someplace, I don't know if it's true, are trying to, what makes those people so smart? Let's teach them Talmud. It will sharpen the brain. We'll all get sharp brains by learning the Talmud. We'll learn how to be, thinkers like the Jewish people. There's a lot of practice. But mitzvahs, that, and how much does it cost to get on the subway these days, right? That and $2. We'll get you on the subway. What practicality is it? What do you need mitzvahs for? What do you need mitzvahs? So what do we say? We designate this mitzvah, we designate his light, and we say that this mitzvah, haneros halalu kodesh heim, ve'ein lana reshus l'ishtamish behem. We have no permission to use them. Elo l'rosim bilvad, only to see them. Kedei lahodos lahalal Hashem. It's only for a mitzvah. And King Shlomo Melech says, "Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or," because a candle is a mitzvah, and Torah and the light that comes off it is the Torah that comes after it is light. So mitzvahs. Ooh. So even though Hanukkah is only once a year, but it's for 8 days, and it's etched into the psyche of a kid that why are we doing this? But why are we doing this? We're putting in the window. We're going to put a little light that's shining out the window, and we're going to designate it, and we're going to delegate it only for it's muksa. It's only set aside for mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is important. That's what chinuch is about. We're saying chinuch is important, and mitzvahs are important, my children. That's how we're going to begin. We begin with one little light. This is the symbol, the Shalach Kodesh says, of all the mitzvahs. And we say, what's important? What's important is mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are important. And we watch that little light grow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And after a while, it gets installed in, just like when you have those little bars that when you're putting something, install this program. After 8 days, it's a part of the psyche of the kid. Once a year, growing up on the reservation of his childhood, inside of his house, ner ish ubeso, chinuch, educating the child. So Shabbos, ner Hanukkah, and ner Shabbos. These are the two values. If somebody grows up on a reservation where there's Shabbos candles and there's Hanukkah candles, Havyan le bonim Talmidei Chachamim, will have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. Now, what does that mean? Now, being Talmid Chacham doesn't mean only that somebody is, he's got the best head in class and he can swing his thumb. What does it mean to be a Talmid Chacham? Okay, for whatever it's worth. Okay, and it means a lot. It means that somebody, even though they go out into the world, into the confusing and crazy and distracting and often corrupting and corrosive world, but it's like that Indian who was walking around in Manhattan, but he can hear the sound of the bird. So somebody who grew up with these ideas, so wherever they go, they say, oh, you know what's important? Neshama is important. Right? That's what we said before. If you Shabbos, you get the idea. What's important? Neshama is important. You don't look at somebody and say, how can I get over on this guy and get him to buy something that he doesn't really need and then I'll get an annuity from every time make the payment. I took advantage of him. Let me take advantage of another one. Let me see how he can help somebody. This guy needs help. Let me see. Maybe he needs Shabbos. Maybe he needs a placement. Maybe he needs a meal. Maybe he needs some friendship. Here's a neshama. Here's a neshama opportunity. That's a mitzvah. Chacham Lev yikach mitzvahs. He's going to grab this opportunity to treat somebody else as neshama. It may be a world where other people are seeing, here's a piece of flesh. Here's a lady, a piece of flesh. Here's a guy that you could take advantage of. You could pick his wallet and you can get into his bank account somehow and get him to take advantage. No, this is neshama. Neshama is a chesed opportunity. And then that's one thing. A person goes out into a busy world where everybody's looking with the other eye, with the fleshy eyes. And you go out and you see neshama into the world because that's how you grew up and on the reservation where Shabbos was important. And you saw those Shabbos candles. You knew there was a neshama there. There was a candle there for you. So there for everybody else in the world is a candle, even though they may not even see it about themselves. And then also what's important to Talmud Chacham, the Talmud Chacham, what's important is mitzvahs. How do I do the mitzvahs more perfectly? How do I do them more in a more refined way? How do I know exactly what are the priorities, what is the ratzon, what is the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in each particular moment? That's really what the Talmud Chacham is trying to define. That's what he's trying to clarify through his learning. And a person goes out in the world and they see mitzvahs, that the world is filled with mitzvah opportunities. Oh, mitzvah opportunities. So when everybody else is looking for money and looking for something else and looking to what can I take for myself, this person leaves Chacham Lev Yikach mitzvahs because he saw that in Hanukkah it got into his brain, it got into his heart, that what's important is that we're a family and we're a culture that's interested in mitzvahs. That's why I think it says Harugel Bener, the person who's a rugel with a ner, Havyan leibonim Talmidei Chachamim, will have children who are Talmidei Chachamim, because these ideas will have gotten into the mind and gotten into the heart of a child growing up on that reservation like that Indian. When he goes out even into a dizzy and confusing world, he'll see that these are the values, this is what's really important, right? And really those are the values that animate and drive a Talmud Chacham. Not just he happens to be the smartest guy in the class and he swings his thumb better than everybody else. He's interested in people and he's interested in mitzvahs and finding out what are the mitzvahs and what's it all about. Okay, that's number one. That's one approach. There's another approach. So again, a little bit more respect for Maimar Chazal. Listen what the Maharal says. Unbelievable. He says, Harugel Bener. He says that somebody who's accustomed with a candle, Havyan leibonim Talmidei Chachamim. He'll have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. What does that mean? Again, listen to what the Maharal says. Maharal has it's a whole new way, a whole new twist, a way of looking at the statement from the sages. Emphasize a different word. It emphasizes it a different way. Harugel Bener. He says like this: someone who's accustomed to taking a look at the whole world like it's a candle. He's wearing a pair of glasses and he sees, not that he sees, he's busy with a candle here, Hanukkah, and a candle Shabbos, but they become the prism, they become the way, the paradigm through which he views everything in the whole world. Harugel Bener, the person who takes a look at the whole world like it's a candle, Havyan leibonim Talmidei Chachamim, will have children of Talmidei Chachamim. Now what does that mean? How do you look at the whole world like it's a candle, right? That's we gotta stretch our brains out over here, right? What does it mean to take a look at the whole world like it's a candle? So one of the exercises that we do on Friday night, I don't know how many people have this custom, but the Shulchan Aruch does mention that when you're making Kiddush on Friday night, we do like a little bit of a cross-reference, yeah? While we're making a bracha on the Brei Prayer Gofen, so we take a glance at the candles, yeah? Isn't that interesting? And then later on we put our eye back on the we're making the second bracha, so our eye comes back now to the coast. So why we're making Brei Prayer Gofen? We're looking at the wine. I mean, we're looking at the candles. What's going on with the candles over there? Interesting. Candle and wine are a little bit opposite from each other. I once heard such an explanation like this. Right. What's that?
You take the wine to put out the candle.
Oh, we put the wine to put out the candle on Havdalah. Interesting. Okay, but in this way, wine, the older it gets, the better. Oh, a Cabernet Sauvignon 1973, is a little better wine than a Cabernet Sauvignon, 1999. Okay, so when it comes to certain aspects of Chokhmah and wisdom, so the older it is. An older Jew, once heard Rabbi Victor Miller, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, says, an old Jew is much holier than a young Jew. Just like if you put a pickle into a jar and you leave it there for 7 hours and then you take it out, don't expect that the juices of the surrounding the pickle will have penetrated the kishkis, the heart of the pickle. Leave it there for a couple of what?
With the same purity.
Older Jew with purity, yeah.
With the same purity as the younger one.
Yeah, obviously given the same juice. Why? Because he's been in a talis longer. He's been in Shabbos longer. Right? He spent more time, saying Tehillim. His mouth has become more imbued with kedusha. That's it. He's been pickled more by the environment. He spent more time in a sukkah. That's it. Than a new, fresh. So there is an aspect of wine that the older it gets, the better it gets. Time improves things. But then you take a look at the candle. Candle has a little bit of a disappointing aspect to it. Because what happens is you put oil into the candle, and over the course of Friday night, whatever it is, if you're using those burned down candles, after a while it burns down, it disappears, until it's gone. Good night. You took some good olive oil, poured it into the menorah, and good night. It disappears. What happened to it? It's over. I remember one of my Rebbeim, his little kids were crying after Pesach was over. They spent so many weeks in preparation for Pesach. His little daughter, we were cleaning up, and she was like on the couch crying. So what's the matter, Brachi? She goes, I can't believe it's over. It's over. Like we put so much effort into it, and it's over. And there can be a certain disappointment that a person gets, that if they don't have the right perspective, they could take a look and say, oh, what did I do? I wasted my time. I went to yeshiva for so many years and I didn't become a rabbi. They can say that about themselves. I bought a lulav of an esrog, and now it's sitting in the corner someplace waiting to burn it with the chametz. I spent $130 on that baby. Yeah, right? I went out and I spent so much money on matzahs. And now Pesach is over, and what are the matzahs worth? You can't get rid of them for pennies. Right? Beforehand, I was buying it. It was like black gold. I could it was called what is it, $30 a pound, whatever it is. Like, oh, I'm spending so much. The price went down precipitously. Chametz is worth more. So what do I do? I made a bad investment. Right? A person could say that to themselves. You could hear the thud in the stomach, and the person say, "What did I do?" A father-in-law said, I had my son learn the kollel for 3 years after, and then he became an accountant. Okay, very nice. He supports himself, but I thought he'd be a lamdan. I thought he didn't become a rabbi. So what did I get out of it? Yeah, a person could say to themselves, I invested something, and I didn't get out of it what I thought I was going to get out of it. But I think that's why it could be that why we end up crossing our eyes, and when we're making a bracha on Friday night on the yayin, we take a look at the candles in order to reorient our priorities. They said Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, said that it was a phrase that Jews used to say. I heard this from a number of sources. And again, my Yiddish is nishtazoi git. Okay, maybe somebody here will help me with the right phraseology. Right? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We have a volunteer over here. And the phrase, they said that many Jews gave up their jobs on Friday afternoon, and they walked away from the factory, from a Freya factory owner, and they got the pink slip. I heard once that somebody even took all those pink slips and he hung it up in his sukkah and he says, "This is my noi sukkah." That was his. Every week he got fired from another job and he had to spend days till he found another job, only get fired again next Friday. You can imagine that. He says, but people who were moiser nafsham, they gave up their lives, they gave up money, they lived, they struggled, they in order to maintain the integrity of Shabbos. But there was a phrase, he says, that broke the heart of the next generation. That phrase was, it's hard to be a Jew. And what happens is, so it took the next generation, and it put a knife into the heart of the next generation. And he says they end up going out to Long Island. They end up becoming the next generation. Whatever, doctors, lawyers, they were looking for material security because it sent a loud signal to their children that it's not worth it. It hurts, it's painful, but it's not worth it. Rabbi Moshe used to say, it's beautiful to be a Jew. It's wonderful to be a Jew, right? But that pain, that phrase, that shared, that krech, that cry, that sigh that they gave, with that phrase over there, gave a signal to the next generation, gave them a permission slip to run away and to become seekers of material well-being. There's a phrase that we say at the end of benching that says, Nar ha'isi gam zakanti. I say this a lot these days when I see myself in the mirror, right? Nar ha'isi gam zakanti. V'lo ra'isi tzadik ne'ezav, right? V'zarom avakash lechem. We're all familiar with the phrase. I was young, David Melch says, now I'm old. In all my years, lo ra'isi tzadik ne'ezav. I never saw tzadik ne'ezav. It's a big question over here. V'zarom avakash lechem. I never saw what people impoverished. You never saw what? So David Melch, he saw the whole future of the Jewish people. He never saw that there was going to be a Warsaw ghetto. He never saw there was going to be a depression in the United States. He never saw that there was going to be times of poverty. What? You never saw Tzaddik Nezab, Zaru Babakar Shlechem, his children were scrambling around for bread? You didn't know that such a thing was going to happen? Tzaddikim always have money in their pocket, right? What's he talking about? You can ask a good question over there in that. This is based on the Metzias. I want to say like this, not based upon the statement that Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal used to say. He says, Nar ha'isi v'gam zakanti. I was old, I was young, now I'm old, my whole lifespan. Lo ra'isi tzaddik nezav. I never saw that there was a tzaddik when he was a tzaddik nezav, when he was abandoned. And he wasn't well off, and he was struggling to make it. That his children should become mavakshe lachem. His children should become mavakshe lachem, because if he was a real tzaddik, he was makabel bi'ahava. He accepted it with love. He accepted it with a resolve that this is good. It's good what a Kodesh Baruch Hu did. Kol madav rachman l'tav avda, and he accepted it if he was a real tzaddik. And that his children should become later on because of his negative attitude that he passed on to them, that they should become mevakshe lachem. Yismach leiv mevakshe Hashem. Right? Rav Simcha Zisel says parenthetically, he says usually a person doesn't feel happy, is not rejoiceful when they're looking for something until they find it. Found a good car, found what I'm looking for. But when a person is looking for Hashem, Yismach Leib, Mevachshe Hashem, just in the Bakasha, even the seeking, the Bikush, is also, there's a Simcha over there. So he says, I never saw that someone who was a really tzaddik, that his children should become Mevachshe Lachem. Rather, they were always Yismach Leib, Mevachshe Hashem. They continue to be people who Mevachshe Hashem. Therefore, there's certain attitudes that get transferred from one generation to another. And one of those attitudes that we're talking about over here is if somebody has the attitude of taking a look at the whole world like a candle. Again, we're going to go back and define the Maharal over here. What does it mean to take a look at the whole world like it's a candle? So the usual material impression that we have is when we take a look at a piece of a ruchnistic investment that we made, we paid tuition. How many tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars have I personally paid, even with a tuition break here and there from the yeshiva? Baruch Hashem, they've been very generous to me. And how many tens of thousands of dollars in order to send a child to yeshiva, right? How much money have we spent on matzahs? How much money have we spent on, and you wonder, what did I get out of it? What do I get out of it? When the yontif was over, and my kid decided to go into business, and he didn't become a Talmud Chacham, and he didn't become a rabbi, and he didn't become a Maggid Shir someplace. So what did I get out of it? What did I get out of my investment? Maybe I didn't get what I was supposed to receive from that investment. And the answer is, the Maharal says like that on this piece where he explains that Haragel Bener Havian Le Banin Tamid Chacham. You should take a look at the whole world like a candle. He says, we said before, Shlomo Melech says, Ki ner mitzvah Torah or, that the light that comes out of the candle, that light, when a person invests his time and puts himself into learning Torah, listen, the Maharal says something. He says it's a big kasha. He says a very beautiful scientific idea. And the truth is, scientists have a big question these days, and that is light. How come the universe is not filled with light? How much light has poured off the edges of the different suns and the different trillions and trillions and trillions of stars that are in the universe? How much light runs off? Now we get this impression that light runs for a while, it gets tired and says, well, that's a little bit too far for me. I'm just like, let me just chill out here for a while, and I stop. Like joggers in the New York City Marathon. Light goes at 186,000 miles a second, and it never stops. It goes on forever. How about that? That's what the Maharal says. Light goes on forever. Right? Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. Light travels forever. Right? The light that a person from the learning that a person did, it's not just something, it struck my eye and it deflected off or it hit this thing. The light travels forever. It's nitzchias. It's netzach, netzochim. It goes on and it doesn't stop. It's endless. It's a ray of eternity. That's what it is. That's what it means. So harogel bener, that someone who's accustomed with a candle, who was accustomed to taking a look at the whole world like it's a candle. The world is an investment opportunity, where a person takes a look and he puts oil into a bowl, and with that small investment of oil that cost him a few dollars to fill up those lamps, he lights it, and the oil burns down and the light goes out, but the light goes on forever. He's happy with that decision that he made. You hear that? So somebody who appreciates when he pays his schar limud to the yeshiva and says, I'm glad that my money went over there. Because whatever learning my kids did for the time that they were in yeshiva, it goes on forever. Whoever taught them Aleph Beis in that learning that they did when they were a little child in yeshiva, it doesn't stop. It keeps on going on forever. It created something that doesn't end. How about that? And therefore the person is happy for that investment rather than taking a look and say, and now that it's over, what did I get out of it? Right? To take a look at the world like it's a candle means that the person feels grateful and feels excitement about the investment. The ruchnius, the investment that they made, that they took gashmius and they turned it into ruchnius. They turned it into something that doesn't end, something that doesn't stop. Because what are we doing over here? Right? What are we doing? Right? We're only taking physical things and we're turning it into ruchnius. I remember one of my rebbeim asked a very stark question. I remember once we had a question to answer QA also. We talked about QA before. I remember somebody asked. I'll put two ideas together. One of them is someone asked, the rabbi, we expected to learn all these svarim. Take a look at this. Take a look. So we got, it was intimidating. We were Bachram starting out. It's overawing to see, all them squiggly lines, all those books, all the libraries just filled with books. And he goes, no, we're just beginners. And he said, can you imagine you take a little child who just exited his mother's womb, who nurses for about 10, 15 minutes at a time, and then he sleeps for the next couple of hours, from exhaustion, from all the hard work that he does. And now you take that child and you open up his eye. You say, here, little Bingle, open up your eye. I'm going to give you intelligence, and I'm going to give you a picture, a vision of all the food that you're going to eat in your lifetime in the next 70 years. And you show him, here's a river of milk, right? Here's a giant lake filled with orange juice. Here's a mountain of potatoes. Here's a Home Depot filled with meat and cereal, And you go, oh my God, OMG, right? And he felt, I'm going to choke. I'm going to die. I don't even have teeth. I can't be masik that that's what I'm going to eat. He said, no, he doesn't realize later on he's going to get teeth. He's going to get an appetite, and he realizes that's a finite number of food that he has to start to slow down because he has to make it last. If he finishes it up too soon, then But you can imagine how much food a person eats in their lifetime, right? Imagine how much food it's got to be. Each of us is going to be eating 3 or 4, giant, all the food that's in this place that's around the corner of an Avenue L, pomegranates. We're going to be eating 3 or 4 different pomegranates filled with each of us. Right, over the course. I mean, it's not normal to imagine. If your eyes are over, we see all the food that we will have eaten in the course of our lifetime. So one of my rebbeim asked like this. So what's the benefit? If let's say I came into the world 7 pounds 7 ounces, okay? And let's say now, after 120 years, I leave 197 pounds and 7 ounces. I keep the numbers round so we have, so we can do the math very easily. That means I ate all those mountains of food. I ate all those, pounds and pounds of protein and beef and grains and milk and all that stuff, right? Only to gain 190 pounds to give back to the worms, right? That was it. That was the whole production, to gain 190 pounds only to have it, dead and buried after a while. Well, what was that? What was that? Yeah? It just doesn't seem worth, all the struggle. What was the point of that struggle? And the answer is that a person made brachas, and the person used the energy that he got from that food in order to do mitzvahs. We go back to our first point over here, and to learn Torah, and to do chesed, and to be never Hashem b'chol darchecha de'ehu, and to get up in the morning to go and to earn money, to give schar limud. Everything he did was Torah. Everything he did was mitzvahs. Oh, so you know what? So then Tal Torah mechayehu. Then all of that light that came off, all of that energy that was produced from all that eating, right? When you split an atom, we know how much energy is inside of an atomic bomb these days, how much oceans and oceans of energy when you open up the smallest particles. So all of that stuff now comes back, and that comes back into this one body, comes back to visit the body, and that's the Tal Torah Mechayehu, that's the dew of Torah that wakes the person up, that comes back to visit this astral body over here for Tchias HaMesim. Can you imagine how much energy there is a person had created in the course of their lifetime that doesn't disappear, that's ready to be revisited to the person, yeah? So we understand what it is that we're accomplishing over here. It's not just for the 190 pounds that goes down, it's in order to create all that light. It doesn't end, it doesn't disappear, it never went away any place. It exists. It's Chai V'Kayam, and it has your address on it, and it's ready. It's in the bank someplace, and it's ready to go back. So Rugel Bener, someone who has this right attitude. There's a sort of a sociological aspect to it, the way we're discussing it over here. Also, it's mystical and it's also practical and sociological. Somebody who has a happy attitude about having the money that they invested in mitzvahs and the money that they put into the gashmias that they invested in raising their children, and they realize that instead of saying, shver, it's a sign of yid, it's hard to be a Jew, and what do we get out of it anyway? That attitude gets transferred into the next generation, and the kids are going away. But the person, Haragel Bener, who ends up looking at the whole world like it's a candle, he's excited. You understand? We're taking Gashmias and we're turning it into Ruchnias. And that Ruchnias doesn't end. That Ruchnias doesn't go anyplace. That's what it's all about. That's what the Maharal understands. Haragel Bener, yeah? Okay, we got it. I think we got that idea over there. Now we'll take a look at one more idea that the Sfas Emes says, right? And then we'll just finish up with something over here. And that is that Haragel Bener, that a person who's Rugel Bener, who's accustomed to the candle, Havyan Leibanim Talmidei Chachamim. Now we get used to this idea that we're busy with all kinds of different things over here. We get used to the idea of mitzvahs. You know, I'm reminding myself of a story. Once I was in Yerushalayim. I think it was the middle of winter time. A couple of my boys were in Eretz Yisrael at the time, and I was there for 1 week. And the Shabbos that I was there, so I had I was about 15, 20 minutes to Shabbos, and I called a cab. I had to get to the host where I was staying. I had my bottle of wine, whatever, just a small bag of personals I'm taking with me. And when I'm in Eretz Yisrael, I try to take the time to speak, if I can, to whatever cab driver, to spend a few minutes if I can get into, if I have a 20-minute ride, I'm going to Masada, it's going to be an hour plus, let me see if I can if I can weave my way into his heart somehow. That's my personal project. Let me see if I can connect with this person, if I can make a difference in his life, make a difference. Let me see what I can do. So here I got this guy, I got a 7-minute ride someplace. And it's 15 minutes to Shabbos, so I got to allow him time to get back to where he's got to go to also. And who stops to pick me up? Someone looks like a skinhead, like all his hair is shaved off. He looks like he's been caked by a couple of wars already. He's very, very, how do you say it? Like, just like, just a sabra, tough, cookie, And I get into the cab, and I sit in the front seat with my few objects, and I figured, okay, I got a few minutes. Let me see if I can, reach this guy. And I said, and they know when I speak Hebrew to these Israeli cab drivers, they try to answer me in English if they do speak English. This guy didn't speak any English. Okay, so I ended up Hebrew. I only know how to speak Mishnaic and Chumash Hebrew, which must sound like someone who speaks Shakespearean English. Like, we're for our Sheratim, who knows what it must sound like to these guys? What a doofus I must sound like, But I say, Ma Shemcha, And the guy says, Uri. But he says, you could tell just from that answer, he's already annoyed with the length of the conversation, Like, what are you going to try to talk to me? He's like, I think sometimes they wake up annoyed, that's it, whatever, I don't know what, but it's like, whatever it is, just like, leave me alone, that's what I did, like this, the wall, yeah. So I said, me'efo ata, Uri? He said, Yerushalayim. But when he said Yerushalayim, I sensed like a little bit of a, like a pride, like a raising of, I can hear humming in the background. Na 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 na. Yerushalayim shows up. Like there was a sense, a surge of pride coming through his voice. Yerushalayim. You could feel it. 67. You could feel. We have the coast of. You could feel there was something there. And I said, Uri. Now I have two pieces of information. Now I can start to weave a sentence, a conversation. It says, Uri. I know where this B'Siyata Shema says, Uri, atakamo dag. Uri, you are like a fish.
You were what?
Atakamo dag. You are like a fish.
Maybe you're talking about something else. Maybe he doesn't know.
He looks at me like what do you? He's ready to stop the cab and to throw me out. Like I'm not even going to get another cab. It's too late. What? He looks at me like what? What are you saying? I said, no. I need tzarich lasbir. I need to explain, He looks at me, yeah, tzarich lasbir. What are you saying? I said, Uri, hadavar muforsam ala dag, the most obvious thing about a fish, shehu gar b'mayim. He lives in the water. Aval hadag atzmo, but the fish himself, hu lo yodea, shehu gar b'mayim. Ulama, ki hu kol hazman b'mayim, because he's all the time in the water. He'll be like, what? Look at this guy. I said, Uri, Atagar b'Yerushalayim, you're a Kodesh. Uri, ba'ati me America, I came from America. Rak l'shvu echad, to be here for 1 week. Al payim dala, I spent $2,000 liot po, to be here. Atagar po kol hazman, Uri ashrecha, ani mikaneh, Uri, happy are you, I'm so jealous. By the time we got out of the camp, he gave me a tip. He was so happy. The biggest gift you can give to somebody these days is to show them what they already have, not to give them anything. You can't give anything to anybody else, but you show them what you already have. And I realized, you can say that about Uri, but the truth is that we're busy with mitzvahs all the time. Also the same thing. You grow up in the Torah world over here, you got tzitzis, and we said shacharis, and we said brachas, and then we lit the candle, and we did mitzvahs, and we do mitzvahs, Come on, anachnu kamot dagim. We're like fish. We don't realize we're fish because we're so busy with it all the time. We're not recognizing. So what is the moral? What does the Sfas Emes says? He says haragel bener. Listen to this. Haragel, the person who does what people what they're ruggled to do. Things that people who do with regilus. Regilus is a good thing. I'm good. I know how to daven. I know how to daven for the Amud. I know how to lane. I know how to, I put on tefillin. I don't know did I just put them on or I'm in the middle of taking them off. I forget where I'm holding right now. But I'm so good at it that that we just take it. We do it with regilus. But haragel, somebody does things that they do with regilus. The Sfas Emes says, but he does it bener. What does bener mean? Bener means nefesh and ruach. He does it with nun reish. Does it with nefesh and ruach. He does it with a ganze leben. That's what ner 250 is ner. Which the Sfas Emes says is the ramach evarim 240 evarim plus 1 for ahava and another 1 for yira. Right? He puts his whole. He does it called atmasai tomar nakah. That all my limbs now are getting involved. Someone who can do something that people do with regilus and can do it bener. He says that's what it means havyan leibanim tamid chachamim. And we explain what does it mean banim tamid chachamim. They have children, like it says. Ve'ela told us Noach ish tzadik tamim hayabadarasav. With the generation of Noach is Noach. And Rashi says over there that maisim tovim shel tzadikim. This is the Toldoseim shel tzadikim maisim tovim. That the person will do mitzvahs that will have extra gezunt, that they'll have extra strength. Right? When a person does a mitzvah in a shlufi way, he creates a shlufi mitzvah. He creates a sleepy malach. When a person does a mitzvah with a heart, he does it. So he creates a live and a vibrant malach. A person does an avera with a heart, with a full heart. So he also creates a vibrant and a powerful malach. So how powerful is a mitzvah? And maybe we'll wrap it up in 1-2 moments over here. How powerful is a mitzvah? That's why we say we're so low. Mitzvahs. Asher Kedishana. We glide over the words. Asher Kedishana. But right? So there's a concept in Gemara that shlucho shaladam kamoso. Right? Kamosa. That the shlucho, the messenger of a person. A guy can marry a girl from a distance, yeah? Right? We learned this is Lamashal in the Sekta Kedushin, right? A guy can marry, right? You want to marry a girl? So there's a friend, Chaim, he's sitting in Iraq, and he's stationed over there, and he gives a call, and he says, I don't want Leah to slip away. Do me a favor, and go to my house, get out the ring that's in the top drawer, go over to Leah's house, and knock on the door, take 2 rabbis with you, go over there and knock on the door, they'll open up, and you say, Hari at Megadesh is low. Don't say Li, or I'll come over there with my gun. Okay? Yeah? Hari at Megadesh is low, but the Bazul Gadas Moshe Israel, and she's married to him over there in Iraq. Yeah, because he takes on the power of attorney. He takes on the shlichus of the one that's sending him. And the Sfas Emes explains in Parshas Vayishlach also, he says that a Jew is a shliach mitzvah. A Jew is a shliach. And who are we a shliach mitzvah of? A shliach mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when a person goes to do a mitzvah, for example, so it's like this. Let's say if I would go to Gracie Mansion at 12 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and knock at the door, and bang on the door. I want to talk to the governor. I want to talk to the mayor, right? I don't think he's there, okay? But let's say Louis Tzur, he was there, yeah. And they're not gonna, and the police, the captain says, "Whoa, who's out there?" So Label Lam, What do you want? What do you want? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're disturbing the peace. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'll call back in the morning. I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk to the man. Forget. It wasn't me. I didn't come here. Forget about it. And I said, oh my God. I could have gotten arrested because it was just me that was coming there. But if I have a letter from the governor, right? I have a letter from the president. Okay. And I come there and I knock on the door. And I said, I have a letter from the president. Who's out there? It's Label Lam, and I have a letter from the president. Because I take on now the power and the proportion of the one who's sending me. If I understand, Asher Kedishonu b'mitzvah sovitz ivanu, then it means I'm taking on the power and the proportion of the one who's sending me. I'm a shliach mitzvah. You understand what that means? That's unbelievable. What do you mean, Asher Kedishonu b'mitzvah sovitz ivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah? It means we're lighting up the world. That's what it means. It's crazy what we're able to do. It's crazy. You don't have to apologize for it. Kodesh Baruch Hu, we're dedicated. I am your shliach. I don't have to apologize to anybody. Remember a kid, I grew up in public school. I had a little dream. We were so apologetic. We were so ashamed of Yiddishkeit. We were so ashamed of, of the little, we had these little songs and they had these, hallelujah. And choir, and I was so embarrassed that they had these big songs, and we had these little. We have Asher Kedishonu b'mitzvah sovitz ivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. We got big stuff. I remember getting on a plane and going on my way to San Diego, and I said now boarding, and I managed to wrap up my stuff. I was diving to the airport, and I got onto the plane. On the way back from San Diego, I had the same arrangement, and I said now boarding, last call. But I was between Shema and Shemon Esrei with my talis and tefillin on. Okay? You got to do what you got to do. So there with my talis and tefillin on my head. I decided I'm going to board the plane. I hand them my ticket. They go, and the lady looks up at me. And wouldn't you know it? I'm the last one. I got the last seat in the back over there. I could hear the coffee cups, falling behind me, as I walked out. I felt like the Lubavitcher Rebbe walking down the aisle over there, Maybe a couple of years earlier I would have said, I'm sorry, this is my religion. I really, no, I'm not allowed to really speak now, but I just wanted to explain so nobody would feel embarrassed about what it really, these are phylacteries and we wear them, and, they're made in a factory, and, and my name is Hill, and I don't have to apologize to anybody. Because I'm a messenger of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And I got his tefillin on my head, and I got his tefillin on my arm, and there's nothing to apologize about. You apologize, you can explain to me what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I don't have to apologize to anybody. I'm not going to make anybody feel bad about it. I remember it was a couple of months later also. It was right before Rosh Hashanah. It was actually the first day of Elul. Not the first Rosh Hashanah, the first when we start to blow the shofar. I brought a shofar with me, and I was getting on a plane. I had to make a stopover in Washington, and then the sun came up. I was davening in my little corner over there, and then it came time to board the plane. So I wrapped up my talis and tefillin, and I was getting on the plane, and we're on that little stretchy place, that little accordion walkway as you're getting onto the plane, and I realized maybe now's the time. But there's some people, wheeling their luggage in front of me and wheeling their hand baggage in back of me, and I'm in between. I said, and I blow the shofar, and they look at me like this is after 9/11. Whoa. And I said, this means we're going to have a good flight. And they go, oh yeah, And I said, psyched. Okay, good. You give it a good interpretation. Right? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu commanded us to do it. And this is Minhag Yisrael. This is what we do. There's no reason to be apologetic about it. And therefore, harugel, someone who does things that people are ruggle to do, and that we ourselves are ruggle to do. But we wake up, we do it in there, we do it by nefesh, and we do it ruach, and we do it with heart, we do it with feeling, we do it with hislavas. So Havyan lei banim tamid chachamim, then we'll have children of tamid chachamim that our deeds will be very, very powerful in the next world. They're not going to be sleeping. They're not going to be half-hearted. They're not going to be limping. They're not going to be have a congenital heart failure or any other kind of or be in some way impaired. They're going to be powerful. They're going to be very, very powerful. So that's the way the Maharat. That's the way this Sfasa is explained. I'll just say maybe just one last idea, and we'll put a cap on it. Very beautiful thing that occurred to me. I figured maybe it's worth mentioning just now, and that is that I remember a number of years ago, my wife and I, we got a call the night before Zos Hanukkah. Some lady called us up. That was on a Sunday. It was Motzei Shabbos. We lit the Hanukkah menorah. The next morning, we got a call. Rabbi Lam. Guess what? This young lady, Michelle. She was an Italian girl. She was accepted by the Beis Din. She says, I became a Jew. So tough. So we came out. It was out in Great Neck, and she said we're having a little party. All the rebbeim, all the families that were involved. We sat there, and they sang songs. They had all kinds of delicious food, and they were singing. And then right after we sang a couple of songs, so one of the rebbeim gave me a nudge and said, "No, Label, Zug, say something." I said, let's sing another song. So we sang another song. And then after we're done with the song, so I had thought of something, and what occurred to me was the last day, it's worthwhile to think about it now, the last day of Hanukkah is called Zos Hanukkah, yeah? That's the last day. And I said, why is Zos Hanukkah called Zos Hanukkah? I don't know if it's something I saw, or something I made up, or something I said enough times that I thought, it starts to make sense to me now. Why is Zos Hanukkah, the last day, the 8th day of Hanukkah, called Zos Hanukkah? Zos usually means something you can point to, right? Zos HaTorah, Moshe, Lifnei B'nai Israel, Pi Hashem B'yad HaMoshe. People point, there's the Torah. Zek Keli Aviv, this is my God. So Rashi has to explain, they saw something. They saw Kodesh Baruch Hu directly, right? Chodesh Hazel Lechem, they saw the sliver of the moon. They said, there's always something when there's Zeh and there's Zos that we're pointing to something. What's Zos Hanukkah? So we understand the Pshat is Zos Chanukas Mizbeach. They can figure that's the last day of the inauguration of the Mishkan, and that was the inauguration of the Mizbeach, and that's the phrase that we say that morning. But of all the days to be called, and all the times to be called Zos Hanukkah, I understand. Maybe you have the first candle in the window. Ooh, Zos Hanukkah. That's Hanukkah. Ooh, that's Hanukkah. Maybe the 8th day, you're pointing and say, oh, Zos Hanukkah. Take a look. There's the Hanukkah in full bloom in the window. Ain't that? That's Hanukkah. Wow. You want to know what's Hanukkah? Come here. Zos Hanukkah. Look, all the menorahs and all their wicks filled. Wow, that's Hanukkah. But the next day, everything's in sunset. There's no more menorahs around. Right? All the oil is ready to be put away. There's no lights to point to. Zos Hanukkah. That's Hanukkah. Right? Yeah. It's missing. Yeah? And the answer I was thinking is, Hanukkah is a lashon of chinuch, of education. My Rebbe used to say, you want to know if education took place? Go see how the guys behave in the dining room. Let's see what happens during Bein Hazman. Let's see how the guys, let's see what stayed on the bone. There's a process that's called chinuch. There's the shir that's happening, and then there's chavrusas, and there's all kinds of different action in the base medrash. That's the process of chinuch. If you want to know that what chinuch happened, if chinuch really took place, if education took place, what happens when the lights are out? What happens when the rebbeim are not around? What happens when the teachers withdraw? What happens when there's nobody there to monitor? Then we'll find out what Hanukkah is, whether that was chinuch or not. I said, there's a teaching process that's been going on the last many months, until she was accepted. Now the teachers are not around anymore. Now no one's going to be monitoring, no one's going to be measuring and evaluating. Now we'll figure out. Now we're getting to the zone called Zos Hanukkah, right? That's what it's all about. So someone once came to the Brisker Rav and they said, Rebbe, I learned the entire Talmud, something like that. And something was wrong with the way he said it, and he said, and what did the Talmud teach you? So we spent 8 days lighting the Hanukkah menorah. And the question that's even, I think, better, more important, not did you light the menorah, but what did the menorah light inside of us? What did the menorah do for us? Right? That we find out what's Hanukkah. We lit the menorah. We did a process. We're in the process of Hanukkah lighting the menorah. But after the menorah is lit, what did it light inside of us? What did it change? What did it alter? How did we become different? When you hit Hanukkah is a beginning. There's no end to Hanukkah. So when you hit 8, you just keep on going. 8 it's just for eternity after that. So we're starting a process that takes us like a plane that's taking off. It just keeps on going. We're not talking about landing this plane. Once it takes off, then it keeps on going. Hanukkah is endless. So that's the concept of Zos Hanukkah. Hanukkah is chinuch. We're starting a process that has no end to it, that just has a beginning. We're starting climbing up Yaakov Avinu's ladder. The question will be, after 8 days, not did we light the Hanukkah candles, but what did the Hanukkah candles light inside of us? Harugel Bener, we can understand, maybe appreciate a little bit more, just that short, simple Maimer Chazal, that statement from the sages, that someone who's Rugel Bener, and their Hanukkah and their Shabbos, Havin Leibonim Tamid HaChachamim.